All right. So Nick is on. All right, good. So let's get started. It's 7:02.
Here on this.
And
I have to use my home computer to listen to.
Julie, okay, yeah. All right, let's open the meeting and call the roll here. So welcome to the Community Preservation Committee meeting. It's our third meeting this month and third of 4 meetings. And thank you for all the applicants for being here. So let's, I'm Tom Callahan, the chair of the Community Preservation Committee, and I also am the representative on the committee from the Affordable Housing Trust. So when we go around, Pete.
Pete Jackson, I'm an at-large member.
Ted?
Ted Carroll, I'm a park commissioner.
Jenny?
Jenny Russell, at large and vice chair of the committee.
Kathleen?
Kathleen O'Donnell, at large member.
And Cheryl?
Cheryl Tagayas, planning board representative.
All right, great. So we have a quorum and we'll get right into the agenda here. So just before we go to the presentations, I just want to start out just describing the process. We've got 20, I always forget the number, 23 applications, 21 applications in front of us for about $3 million. We only have a little over $1 million to distribute. So that's one thing we're saying to every applicant up front, be in mind that we cannot fully fund, we can't fund every project at the full amount that's requested. Just the funds the math doesn't work. But we're, this is the first of 2 rounds. This is the eligibility round to essentially determine if a project is eligible and to help us understand the project better. It's an opportunity for us to deliberate as a committee to give any feedback that we feel might be appropriate to and strengthen an application in the second round. This is, as I mentioned before, this is the 3rd meeting of the month where we've seen, I think 11 or 12 of the applicants already, and we'll sort of complete the initial first round review tonight. And then we will be meeting next week to deliberate basically around all of the initial eligibility applicants. And after that, every applicant will hear back from us with some feedback. If the project's not eligible, they'll hear back from us about that. If it is eligible and invited to submit a full application for round 2, that will happen in that communication at that time. I'll turn to my fellow committee members to see what about that process I might be forgetting or other things that they might want to add. So I'll open the floor if I didn't describe that correctly or if I forgot something. All right, that's the process. All right, let's get right into it. We also are trying, and so far 2 for 2. I think we've been meeting pretty much keeping to the time frame. So timetable here, we're asking applicants to make no more than a 5-minute presentation, and then allows 5 minutes for questions from the committee. You can make a less than a 5-minute presentation if you'd like. And we have a lot of applications this year, and really this allows us to condense it into just 3 meetings. So we appreciate your brevity. All right, so I think Nick is up first for the Manning Park Pergola. Nick Milano.
Good evening, everybody. Nicholas Milano, Town Administrator. Appreciate the opportunity. I'll be here for this project and then the next one as well. So the Manning Park Pergola over on the deck in East Milton. I'm just going to show a couple of quick pictures here just to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about, which I'm sure you do. But here's a nice picture from the fall from our engineers of East Milton. The pergola, which has gone through an extensive design and feedback process, is fully designed. The issue is a question of getting the funding in place to purchase the equipment and install it. The renderings, which you may have seen before as the select board was providing comments back, are here. So a pergola at this end here, and then a second picture just showing a second rendering, a place to sit, place for some shade, a place to gather, and a focal point for the deck. As you know, we've been excited for some of our events that we've had over the past I'd say about 9 months since it's been in position. We've had the chamber had a Halloween event. We had a Christmas event, concerts on the deck. We want to continue that process as we move forward to encourage use and activation of this great location. And the pergola is kind of the last piece of that process. So big picture, we expect the total project to cost about $750,000. Representative Driscoll has secured a $100,000 earmark in the state budget for improvements at this location, which would be inclusive of the pergola. So we brought this project to the select board, and the select board approved a request of $250,000 from CPC for this project. But in being fully transparent about our funding position is of the $750,000 estimated budget, we have secured $100,000, and getting that gap even further narrowed down will be helpful as we try to identify other potential sources of monies if this project were to fully move forward. So try to do a really quick high level overview. Happy to take any questions if you have any at this time.
Great. Thank you, Nicholas. Questions from the committee? Kenny.
Nick, you said it's been purchased already?
No, I'm sorry. The design has been complete. What remains would be the purchase and installation.
And does the design, I see like the trees in the background, does that 750 include like the landscaping?
The landscaping wouldn't be, there would be some minor changes to the site plan, but it would be really the design is the actual equipment and the actual installation. So it would be ready to go out to bid. It's at that level of completion, just kind of dots and I's, cross and T's. So it's shovel ready, as they say, pending completion of budgeting for it.
Thank you.
Jenny?
Nick, I had a question about the funding. It seems like there's still quite a gap, and curious as to what other options you have out there and what you're hopeful about.
So, we always try to pursue grant opportunities if they were to arise outside of CPC, obviously. It is a town park. Another alternative would always be to go through the regular town budgeting process, whether it's capital money or otherwise, to request the use of money for this park. I think as you folks are probably well aware that when it comes to our capital budget and other projects in our annual operating budget, we're typically trying to keep things running, and expansion and new is usually a pretty big lift. So, that's always an option, but it's hard to put this in front of replacing very old equipment, doing improvements to our facilities. So it's just kind of in that prioritization, a tough one for us.
Nick, I don't know and Mike, I'm glad you're here. I don't know if the town considers naming opportunities. It seems to me that this is such a high profile location, and with the big investment that's occurred there and the visibility of this facility and the potential uses for it, that it might be a great opportunity for private fundraising, and particularly a naming opportunity in a visible place. So I'm not sure if the town typically does that. I know we've got the there, Hugo gazebo that's named. So maybe you could think of that, and if that's even a possibility.
Nick, did you want to respond to that, or?
No, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, so Pete, I think that's a great idea. I mean, the analogous thing that I can think of is the Copeland Fieldhouse. And so that's not something I don't think that we've considered before, but I think that's a great idea.
And are there any other question? I have a question, but do any other members have a question? So this is a little different than obviously the pergola would make that space even more attractive. Who's leading the discussions? I might not be aware of some about the programming of that space, right? Because it's great to have a physically improved space, but programming is presumably, at least from my opinion, what's going to bring people to utilize that space. It would be a shame to build a beautiful pergola and have it sit empty. So, is there a coordinated town effort around programming, like Friday night beer gardens and other types of, it just seems like there's so much potential for that space, but it needs a centralized, organized force. But anyways, that's open to anybody.
No, I agree 100%. And I think that's a place where if folks have ideas, if folks want to lend a hand, we'll take that. And I think it's something we need to work on to make sure that we're maximizing, what is a great opportunity for events. And we're grateful for the chamber and other folks who have stepped up to try to program for it. But we certainly need as we go forward, a more kind of proactive effort on that front. Agreed.
Kathleen?
As a neighbor of this park, I can say that the shade would be really useful because it'll be some time before the trees that have been planted there will provide anything more useful than providing shade for the rabbits. So it would be a great idea. One of the things that we had talked about when we were on the planning board and looking at sort of commenting on the 40B projects and other projects in East Milton was going to the funding, was sort of putting in asks to developers doing projects in that area to support those kinds of improvements that would be available to the new residents when and should they ever arrive. And so that would be some idea that I would think of in terms of the fundraising for it, would be to reaching out to developers to contribute to that because their residents are going to be using it.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. All right, let's just roll right into the next project, the basketball court improvements at the COA. So I think, Nick, you're up again.
Sure.
I'm not sure who's leading this, but.
No, I appreciate it. So there'll be a few of us. So I'll turn this over now to Marianne to speak to it, and I can fill in some additional info as we go.
Great. Oh, you're muted, Marianne.
Can you guys hear me well? I'm in Cape Cod, trying to speak out from here.
Yep, we can hear you great.
So to me, of course, I'm in the neighborhood, so I walk by and drive by it every day. And I believe that it's almost like an obvious investment for the town because we're getting a new fire station, state-of-the-art fire station. And it would be not smart not to do something about the basketball area. It has great potential because aside from the court, there is a nice green area that has never been used. And I believe it would be, aside from even the seniors and families with young children space to hang out, to exercise. Already the seniors have classes in the morning on the basketball court. And to me, when I was talking to Mike about the idea, it didn't seem to be a huge investment. So I think that's another huge benefit because the town wouldn't have to spend so much to make that area very attractive. I also think we're trying to help our kids, our adolescents, our high schoolers to have more space in town for them to hang out, open spaces, right? We're trying to fight with the problem that we have with the woods, and that would be a very good area for people because they already come there like to play basketball in the evening. The hoops are old. It just doesn't make any sense to keep that after we have the beautiful new fire station. So to me, that was an easy one, and of course, I was assuming that wouldn't be such a good deal to build the park. And apparently we have a very good quote. And I think it should be doable. So I'm here representing my neighborhood, but I think it will benefit the entire town. It will be another place for our communities to get together and for us to showcase the diversity that we have in our town.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And so I'll just share a couple of quick pictures so folks. So what we're talking about here, and I mean, I think it's been labeled as the town center basketball court. I think that's a good way to put it. So it's right at the corner of Walnut and Clap. This is an older satellite picture, so you can see where all this area is disturbed now. You can see where the new town hall parking lot was under construction. Just as an example of the age of the structures, these are the basketball hoops and nets, and just as another illustration of kind of the lack of attention that this area has received in recent years, that we are trying to correct by seeking some money to redo the court, redo the hoops, and do some landscaping improvements. And I'll add that the Department of Public Works is currently engaging our transportation engineer beta group to start working on Clap Street in terms of ahead of a repaving project on Clap. So we would be able to have some synergies with that project as they redo Clap, do some sidewalk projects and sidewalk work along that area. So that's the project that's in front of you, and we're happy to take any questions.
So first question I have is there's quite a bit of slope from the basketball court to Clap Street, right? If you're like me and you miss a 3-pointer from the corner, the ball is gonna go into Clap Street. Is there would the redesign plans address that either with fencing or with resloping, or that resloping presumably is a bigger job, but I've watched people play there, and the ball runs well away from the court easily often.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think as you can see, just from the pitches alone, that is an obviously issue. I've spoken to DPW about that issue, and whether it's it's some sort of a berm that goes along with the Clap project, or whether it's some other options that would be in what we're considering, and would want to tease that out before we come back if deemed eligible, as we go through the process here with a little bit more definition to that piece of it.
Okay. Other questions by members? Cheryl.
Yes. How did you arrive at the budget of $75,000 in the request?
All right, so the Parks Department is redoing the courts over at Andrews, and so based on the work that they're doing in the budgets and the pricing that they got back, this was just kind of in line with trying to match that out to the scope of work here. So it's not a perfect estimate, but that is the basis that we were starting from, and would certainly try to arrive at a solid figure as we move forward here.
And then who's responsible for maintaining, which department's responsible for maintaining this green space? So
it's all this property is select board property, and it's mowed by Parks, but that that's about the extent of it. So in terms of maintenance, I don't think we can say anybody really runs with it in terms of maintenance. In terms of mowing, that's parks.
And I'm just going to make a comment too, for other members. You know, the Master Plan Implementation Committee, which I chair, has looked at town center from a sort of a larger planning perspective, and is probably going to pick it up again in the near future. And one of the things that we've talked about is the activation of that park and the use of that park. And so I actually took a stroll up that way today and was taking a look at the juxtaposition of construction project, which is really encroached further into the green space than I thought when the Fire Station Building Committee first came to the Planning Board and to the Master Plan Committee with their plans. And so it would be nice to get clarification on what they will be doing as part of their project to restore the green space, because the area, which is all staging now and construction parking and so forth, obviously won't be part of the fire station project in the future. So it might be worthwhile looking at the larger park itself, you know, in conjunction with the basketball. And maybe it's done in two phases, you know, so that the basketball is the first phase of a two-phase kind of look at it. And maybe there's some assistance that the MPIC can have in that as well as we do our planning there. So I just wanted to throw that out for folks.
Thank you, Cheryl. That's a good idea. Jenny?
Yeah, I was curious about the use of it. Is anybody monitoring now the use of the court? And is anyone thinking about multiple uses of the court beyond basketball in that space?
Mike, if you can feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I can just tell you, beyond the young people or whomever else who plays basketball there, generally in the evenings, from what I've observed. But I've also observed in the mornings the COA has some kind of classes over there. I don't know if they're yoga. I'm not sure what it is, but you'll see about 25 to 30 seniors lined up on that court doing some kind of exercise on certain mornings. So just from my observation, you have kind of, as Mariani said, you kind of a diversity of use between the young people and seniors.
I'll just chime in a little bit too. When we did this planning work a couple of years ago, we did a workshop with the youth. So we had participants from Pierce and from the high school, and they spoke about how it would be nice to have a place to gather. So like Mariana had said, and so sort of engaging them in this sort of a phase 2 process, what this space could be for them, or even in regards to the basketball court, I think would definitely be beneficial.
Are there any lights there now?
No.
Nor plans for any lights?
Not this project. What didn't propose lights, I don't think. But.
Right. Not at this time.
All right.
Tom, let me just add. I'm very familiar with these courts. It's my neighborhood. It's long overdue. It is one of those hidden little gems of town that has been long neglected. Right. And it would be nice I know it is town land, but if those courts were fixed up, it does give the Park and Rec another option to do all sorts of activities. So that's all.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ted. All right. Thank you, everyone, for that presentation. And I think the next thing is the Brook Walk study. So Jeff Stone is up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tom. And thanks for the opportunity to present on the Milton Brook Walk, which is a concept that I first presented during the master planning process about 9 or 10 years ago. And I made a presentation board for one of the meetings at Fuller Village to propose ideas and get people talking more about the process. And I'm going to, can you enable screen sharing for me?
I think it should be enabled.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, okay.
I just
Oh,
tweaked
there
that
it
for
is
you. You should be
now.
all set.
Okay, I think it's ready now.
Good.
So let's see, there we go. Can you see that screen now?
No.
No. Okay. How do we do this? Oh, probably here. Let me know if you see anything.
Now we do.
Okay. But I want to, it's not in the middle, is it?
Right. Correct.
Now it is, right? Is it full size now? No?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but basically this is a concept. I think the committee has probably seen this. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody has
Okay.
all applications in front of them. Yep.
Right. So this would knit together the water bodies of Milton, Pine Tree Brook, Pope's Pond, Turner's Pond to the Neponset River with a contiguous, almost contiguous trail with an identity that is an educational and recreational path. Right now, people already walk along around Pope's Pond, and they'll be walking all the way around Pope's Pond pretty soon when the new footbridge is put in. Turner's Pond, and also the Pine Tree Brook neighborhood along the brook between Blue Hills Parkway and Thatcher Street. People walk along there, but it's not an identified path anywhere. And it could be extended pretty contiguously all the way to the Neponset River at Milton Village at Central Ave, Elliott Street, which is what this proposes to do. So this proposal is for a feasibility study, which I had a firm called VHB, Vanas, Hangen, and Bruslin. It's a national company that does this work. And they have a Watertown office, and they had senior landscape design planners and activity planners work on this $30,000 request for a feasibility study. So the benefits of this are here, 6 major benefits, which are, many of them are consistent with the master planning goals of open space and healthy recreation. Also, it cuts through different parts of town. Let me show a map. Hopefully I can get the map up easily. I know you want to see a map, right? So there's a map. Can you see it? Is the map showing?
Yeah. No.
Okay. Yeah. So we'd start here, and there's parking at Ullin Rink over here. So that's where parking would exist. And if needed, go by either side of Pope's Pond once you can travel all the way around it, walk all the way around, crossing Blue Hills Parkway, and then on that part of the Pine Tree Brook neighborhood, cross Thatcher. This is the only part right here, actually from Brook Road to Central Ave, where the brook is in like a duct. It's in behind people's houses, and there's no room for walking, I believe. But then it would resume walkability around Turner's Pond, Glover School, and now, as of the last few years, this has become Conservation Commission land along Herrick Drive to School Street, which reverted to the town. It's become conserved land, which I have a lot of optimism that the Conservation Commission and the town would allow a path to be constructed there, perhaps a boardwalk as needed. The question mark, which the consultants would help us determine, is once you cross School Street, which is right here, it kind of is in the back of people's backyards, way down to the brook when you get to Mackey's Barbershop at Elliott Street. I walked that stretch once some years ago. I don't know what the ramifications and the limitations of that might be, but that's something to be determined in a feasibility study. That's an important part of walking alongside the brook to the Neponset. It's 3 miles long, approximately, give or take. Identifying it with signage would give an incentive. It would be an asset for the town, an amenity. A working name is the Milton Brook Walk. It would be an incentive for people to walk. You could have mileage markers, every quarter or half mile, as well as signs identifying the seasonal flora and fauna, which could be a wonderful project for the 4 schools, for kids and their teachers in the 4 schools that it passes by. 3 public schools plus Milton Academy. So you look up, this tree is blooming at this time of the year, or these animals, or these insects, or these shrubs, etc. So it has multiple benefits, going back to the benefits that I mentioned. As far as, I want to show you a couple of things.
Jeff, we're at 6 or 7 minutes now, and I want to leave some time for questions.
Oh my goodness.
I don't want to cut you off, but I want to cut you off.
Okay.
Just so I anticipate maybe there are a couple of questions at least. So
Absolutely. Sorry. Yeah.
You could stop screen sharing so we could go back to normal, and then
right. Let's see if I can stop screen sharing here.
So are there questions from the committee?
There we go.
Jeff, one question I had is, Wellesley, in some of the materials you shared, Wellesley has a series of brook walks. I don't know what they're exactly called, but have you talked to the folks over there, or have you walked those brooks? Or, I mean, it seems like this could be the start of something like what Wellesley has developed, which is a pretty extensive network.
Yeah. Wellesley, I just checked on that again. Wellesley has in total over 40 miles of trails, 20 something, like 26 miles, which are signed or identified. Those trails go everywhere across Wellesley. Lexington has a similarly very large network of trails. And both these towns are not only alongside bodies of water. They're not just by brooks. So ours would, specifically follow the Pine Tree Brook, which happens to run through our town.
Okay. Kathleen, and then Jenny.
My just question, I assume that one of the questions that BHP will be looking at is the ownership of the properties that you would propose to include in these trails.
Yes.
As I assume that most legal descriptions are going to run to if it's private property, are going to run to the brook as a description. And so there really wouldn't be a place for a trail at that particular juncture, but I suppose that BHP will be looking at that.
Somebody once described to me that there's a right of way along the brook, but
there may be. That's something they have, in their proposal, which I think you've seen. They've outlined, pretty much all the due diligence and the questions like you're mentioning, Kathleen, that they would have to look at. They do this work in other communities. They do this very kind of work.
I've worked with them a lot in the last 40 years.
Thank you.
Jenny.
Well, I think this is a great idea. And the other thing that I would encourage you to think about in terms of the signage is not just about the flora and fauna, but about the history, and particularly culture and indigenous ownership and settlements. So
I love that idea.
Just putting that seed in.
Fantastic idea. Thank you. And Pete, you mentioned naming opportunities. Wow. I wrote that down when you mentioned it. It'd be great for, whoever in town, businesses or whoever want to take this quarter mile, we'd love it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right. Thank you, Jeff. This is really creative, and we appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much.
So, all right. Moving along, we're doing well here. Blue Hills Observatory fence repair. I'm not sure. Let's see. I'm not sure. Thank you, Barbara. Sorry for raising your hand.
Hi, I have a little slideshow I'd like to share.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see if I can run that. My name is Barbara Farina, and I am an architectural project manager with DCR, and we have partnered with Charlie. Are you there? Blue Hills Observatory Science Center. Charlie was on the call.
I am right here.
Executive director, if I'm not mistaken.
I am right here.
We're very pleased to be able to share this project with you. It's exciting what's been happening up here. Oops, let me see if I can go down one. Here we go. Just some quick background. National Historic Landmark, built in 1885 as a weather observation post. There were subsequent additions, 1889, 1902, with a Gustavino vault system for an attempt to fireproof their library. 1905 is when the surrounding concrete wall and that wonderful wrought iron fence were built. It was quite popular over 100 years ago, as it is today, and there was a need to protect the instrumentation and other things within. There was a tower replacement in 1908. The observatory holds the record for the oldest continuously maintained and operated weather observatory in North America. NOAA has operated a weather station here for many, many decades. And in 1998, our partners, the Blue Hill Observatory and Science Center, opened an educational climate and earth science center up top. They offer classes and camps and tours for the public and all kinds of other educational programming. It remains, well over 100 years later, a prime destination for hikers. It's one of the highest peaks near the coast in this area. And from the top, you can see 360 degrees around. We're fortunate to have these incredible historic photos. This is from 1905 when they were starting to construct the surrounding concrete and wrought iron enclosure. When they tore the original tower, stone tower, down and rebuilt it in 1908, you can see this wonderful fence was witness to that. It appears in all of these photos. It's currently pitted and rusted. It's held up remarkably well, considering it did undergo a restoration, some work maybe 30 or so years ago. Some of the sections are buried. There is missing paint. It provides a really important security perimeter for the observatory. They continue to see people climb over or attempt to climb over to get in. When the gate is open, people just walk in and walk in the building. And importantly, it's really the gateway to the observatory that all the visitors pass through. The fact that it's open and you can see through it to the front door and most of it, it's really a wonderful element here. We propose to remove, it's about 95 linear feet, and put up a temporary fence, remove it off-site and remove the rust, do some repairs. Some areas are almost rusted through, and refinish it and reinstall and adjust the grade. We're estimating the cost at about $50,000. We will have to take it down and remove it off-site, and we will have to adjust the grading. I'm going to skip this in the interest of time. Some of the work that has recently occurred up there. Again, I'm going to skip these. These are some of the other serious issues that we've just recently dealt with to make sure this building lasts well more than another 100 years. This is some of the work that was recently done, a temporary tower to relocate the instrumentation off the tower so that we could remove the top of it and then rebuild it exactly to match. That was 8 submittals to the Mass Historic Commission. This is an example of what it looked like after we removed the plaster that was covering a lot of these structural cracks and rotted wood. And this is what it looks like today with the weather observer back in their perch. These are just some other photos of the fence. You can see the pitting that's happened. It's about 80 inches high. It's a wonderfully ornate fence, and these decorative spear tops really do serve their purpose. This is the gate closed, which really is a signal to the public that it's, we're not open right now. When the gates are open, it is a really welcoming effect. I included this photo. This is a picture taken when the crenellated top, as you can see below here, was removed. We encased the whole building at different times. The walls were rebuilt, the stone walls as well as the concrete tower. It's an incredible gem. It's highly visible. It's a landmark, and it continues to be a destination. We also improved the universal access around the building and in the building, as well as recently some upgrades to comply with building, plumbing, and electrical codes, and some energy efficiency improvements. But this last piece could not be fit into the budget, which ran over considerably. And it's an element that we think would really just be wonderful to have preserved and refinished for the next 100 or so years. We thank you for your consideration.
Great. Thank you, Barbara. Are there questions from committee members? Pete? Pete, you're unmuted.
Barbara, it's nice to see you after all these years, and I continue to see your good work. I think the work that has been done recently up there is amazing, and I think it's a tribute to the Blue Hills. You mentioned a budget of, you thought it was going to cost $50,000. Your request was $25,000. Do you have another funding source?
No, we don't. When I didn't find out about this, your program, until just it was less than a week beforehand, and quite honestly, we were scrambling to kind of put that together and get some numbers. We did take a stab at it, but when we realized that it can't be repaired on site, it has to be removed, sections of it. So we need temporary fencing. Sections of it have become buried over time, and we need to dig those out and then adjust the grading when we do replace it. And it does need repair work and rust removal. And then we'd like to put, a really good, probably an epoxy type coating that is not black, but similar to a wrought iron, to make sure that it lasts for quite a while longer.
Just one other thing I'd like to say is Arthur Roch was a Milton resident, and his family were a very prominent family in town. So honoring his legacy is terrific. Thank you.
So Barbara, I think I have this right, but all the historic preservation projects have to comply with Secretary of the Interior's historic preservation codes. Is that something for the fence? I don't know exactly what that would mean, but yeah.
Yes, we as I said, when we did the renovation of this building, we went to Mass Historic Commission with 8 project notification forms, whether it was, can we remove the top and rebuild it to match? Or is it okay if we use this material to replace a door that's 40 years old? We have a 0 kind of limit for notifying them of work up there, or on any of our projects, actually. And this historic landmark, of course, is the highest threshold.
Yeah. And Kathleen?
Who would the funds be going to? Who owns the building, or who owns the fence?
So DCR owns the property, but the Blue Hills Observatory Science Center is our partner. They've been up there for probably close to, what is it? Is it 30 years, Charlie?
Well, about 25 years.
25. They manage the property. They run all their programming out of there. They take care of the building, all the day-to-day that stuff. We would be looking to them to, we would assist and support them, but we'd be asking them to kind of go out and contract with whoever it is we work with. We do have some people that did do some handrails and made changes that were recently required. So we have some good information about who we would probably seek to use.
Well, as I said, I'm just sort of thinking that, we do these grant agreements between the recipients and the town for these kinds of funds. And so my question was kind of like, well, is DCR going to sign that, or is Blue Hills Observatory have an interest that they could sign instead? That was just kind of my question.
We would be willing to do that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Barbara and Charlie, is it? I appreciate it. And I think we'll move on to the next project, which is the water station at Andrews Park. Which is Steve?
No, I'm obviously not the lovely Suzanne Lombardi, but her lesser half, Andy D'Amato. I'm here to present this proposal on behalf of the East Milton Neighborhood Association, which I'm a board member. So I want to propose that we put a water filling station at Andrews Park. And Andrews Park is a very used park. It may even be the most used park in town. I don't know. We can ask Ted Carroll that question, but it's certainly used. And really, I don't think the town's done much in the park in the 30 years I lived here. And as a matter of fact, there used to be a drinking fountain in the location I'm proposing to put this water filling station, but that's been gone for a while, even pre-COVID, maybe even 5 years before pre-COVID. But to that point, there is plumbing there, so that may keep the cost of this project down. Yeah, so I have slides. If everybody's sharing screens, I'd like to do it. If I can. If I can't, we'll go old school.
I think we can enable that for you.
Okay.
Julia?
Okay. Am I there?
I think you might be, but I'm not sure. I'm not the one that can enable it, so I don't think I can, at least. I think Julia has to do that. Or somebody from the town. I'm not sure.
Okay, let me know, because I'm looking at my screen.
So you don't see a green button that says share screen at the bottom?
See, let's go back to where I hit it, but maybe it wasn't. Yeah, I see it. And then I'm going to hit this and say share. And then open system preferences, security, privacy. Yeah. All right. So let's skip it.
We do have your presentation, so we've seen those, so we can manage without the slides if you want to talk us through it.
Yeah, I could talk.
I can share my screen.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. So there's something called a summary. Start with that. So basically, while this is getting going, I'll just give you, okay, here we go. So there really, obviously a bunch of functions for this that I thought were important. One is obviously to reduce the consumption of disposable water bottles, which, I walk my dog every day down Andrews, and during baseball season, it's not unusual to pick up over 10 half, drunk water bottles or Gatorade bottles or whatever. So I think it would help that. Certainly reduce the environmental impact of, plastic use bottles, to reduce, reuse. And it would keep Andrews Park cleaner. Make it easier, encourage people to drink more water since it's there, it's free, it's easy than the sugary sort of Gatorade, baloney drinks that kids think make them run faster, jump higher, but in actuality, don't do any of that, but dehydrated. It could be a pilot program, really, if the concept worked, to move on to other parks. And I think, it would be interesting to see. Now, the two sort of, if you're looking at my little summary there, you'll see there's some from Aquafil and some from LK. LK, the latter are just, structures that are solid tubular water fountains with a refill. Either they have a refillable bottle filler, they'll have maybe a drinking fountain and a dog bowl. That's the ultimate, all three of them. And all three of them that I've suggested here, you could see are all ADA compatible to some level. Some of them, only one part might be. But the Aquafil one is, and if we'll get a picture of this up later, the Aquafil stations have these Lextan panels on, which are information, and they're really sort of interesting. I first saw them in Florida, and they're used quite a bit in Cape Cod now. They have a lot of them up and running. And the interesting part about that panel is it can be monetized, or it can be used information. It's fairly inexpensive to get, a printer to put up a sheet of plastic over it to change the information. If we were having an event, maybe at the Manning Park or anything, or if we could get a sponsor, and they pay X amount for the summer usage, and that could fund future water filling stations at the other parks. So it's sort of an interesting concept. And if we could just move on to look at those aquafills, or look at either one of those. Right. So there's one of the aquafills. And you can see this one just has informational stuff about filtered water, why you would use it. And this one does not have a drinking fountain on it or a dog bowl. This is sort of the bare bones model. It just has two container fillers on either side. But some of them, and the ones I propose, really the ones I'd like to see, have both a drinking fountain and a dog bowl. And if anybody's been down Andrews Park, that it's, there's a pretty big dog community down there, as well as, many sporting activities. There's, and as, Ted Carroll said, they're redoing the basketball park. It's really used a lot. The tennis courts are there, and I think they're getting a little update too. So, just want to keep kids and people hydrated, I just, and reduce the use of those, plastic bottles, litter that park continuously. So it's simple, there's it's not really a complicated request. It's just whether or not you guys have the money for, such an awesome idea.
All right. Thank you. Cheryl, let's open up the questions. Cheryl, you're up. You can stop.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks, Andy. Just a couple of questions about maintenance. And while the water to the user would be free, there would be a cost to the town, I assume, for the supply of the water. We all.
No doubt you're going to have to pay people to drink their water. Yeah.
So just a question of how much it might cost the town to supply the water. If it were, some other kind of customer who's supplying the water, if you had an estimate. And then the other is just, if if there's any maintenance, or what kind of maintenance might be required, and who would be responsible for maintaining it.
Yeah, sure. These are very simple machines. They're just piped, it's a drinking fountain, basically. As far as the water goes, I don't know what that would cost. I don't know what it costs the schools to have a drinking fountain. There's no sewer cost. But we can ask the DPW what they think that would be. And maintenance, it does have a filter, although from the Aquafil, the one that has the panels, has a filter option. Now, from what I understand, we can do a test and see if the filters are actually necessary. The other LK products that are also on my sheets that I didn't show you, do not have a filter. So the filters are about $110 delivered, and they are changed once a year. So it's not a huge cost if we did need a filter. And maintenance, the materials are stainless steel. So there's really no maintenance other than, maybe pulling the gum out of the drinking fountain like you would at any other drinking fountain, So it really maintenance free. Honestly, there's, from what I understand and from the people I talk to down at Cape Cod, they don't have a problem with either of them. So, and they actually monetize them. So, I just think it's worthy of doing down there,
What towns on Cape have that?
Yeah, they're in, I think they're in Barnstable and along the beach and I don't know. I was just emailing him. I did get confused there. I don't know exactly what towns they are, but I can get that information.
Okay.
If you want to take a peek at them. But yeah.
And
so
Jenny?
as far as the installation, yeah. So okay, so there's a picture of one with a drinking fountain, and you can't see the dog bowl. But as far as installation goes, you probably need a pad poured by DPW, a concrete pad, and maybe a foot or two around, dug deep with some gravel or some rickrack to get the excess water to drain off. So that would be an installation cost that the DPW would have to incur. I'm sorry.
Okay. And Jenny, you have a question, and then we move on.
Well, just so this would just assume then that the DPW would own this piece of equipment?
Yeah, we'll give it to the DPW, sure. I don't care who owns it, really.
Yeah. Okay.
The other part about the monetization is that the East Milton Neighborhood Association would lead that program to find a sponsor if possible, or to find or to just put up town information. That's something, a responsibility we agreed to take on. So there wouldn't be any burden on town hall to do so. We would take care of that. If you want, or if you want to take the money and do it, as long as we get the water.
All right, Andy, thank you. Pete, do you want to squeeze in a question here?
Just quickly, Andy, have you talked to the park department about this, and do you have their support in this proposal?
Being this was, a preliminary meeting, I have not moved forward with either the DPW or the park department, but we can ask Ted right now if we want to put him on the spot. But I think the fact that there used to be a drinking fountain there, is sort of let's just put one back. It was there forever. And I don't know why it was taken down. It wasn't vandalized. One day it was just shut off, and then it never came back on. So, I don't know. But with the amount of activity at that park, I certainly think this would be an amenity to the entire, not the entire town, but everybody who visits it, which is almost the entire town.
All right, we're going to move along. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you so much for considering.
Appreciate you coming in and presenting this, and we'll be back in touch.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so the next project up is baseball improvements at Andrews Park.
Wow.
I'm not sure who is presenting on that. Is anyone here for the baseball improvements at Andrews?
Who submitted the application?
Steve Novak.
Oh, okay.
I think that's, Steve Novak.
He's,
All right.
I think, going to be a little bit late. So if you want to move
All
on to
right.
the
We can hold that to the end. And after that is Julie Kramer in the Affordable Housing Trust. Julie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tom, and members of the Community Preservation Committee for your time this evening. I do not have slides, so I apologize for that.
No, don't apologize.
It's been a tough week. So I am here representing the Milton Affordable Housing Trust. We're a small but mighty group whose purpose is to aid in the creation and preservation of affordable housing for the benefit of low and moderate income households. We submitted an application, as you know, for 33% of the CPA funds collected this year, which we estimate to be about $350,000. I submitted our application to sort of let folks know what our plans are for this year, and to let folks know that, you know, what we really are here to do is to intervene in many ways to create affordable housing for our town, working with developers or owners of housing to incentivize them to create more affordable housing in their properties or in their projects, as well as work to create affordable housing that is singularly affordable. One of the initiatives we're working on currently is the creation of affordable housing at the town farm. And we're inching ever so closely to an RFP that would be issued for the development of that site into affordable housing. So the trust can really act sort of as the town's intermediary and do some of the work needed to ensure that this housing is community focused, that it's aimed at the appropriate income targets, and is able to be put on the SHI, or the subsidized housing inventory. Sorry. So I can answer other questions or talk a little bit more about some of our work plan items and initiatives.
So Julie, I start with this question. We got two affordable housing applications this year, one from the trust and one from Winter Valley for their.
Great.
And it led to a conversation. As you know, we're a new committee, only in our second year, and led to a preliminary conversation. We haven't really had a full conversation on this committee, but whether or not we should entertain specific affordable housing projects from a third source like that, or whether we should direct them to go to the trust, because the trust now has some funds. So do you have I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to this, and I don't know how we as a committee would fall down on that issue, but do you have an opinion? I know the trust has the Affordable Housing Trust being a member. We haven't discussed that either, but do you have an opinion? Professional background. What would be the better avenue? Would that be something the Affordable Housing Trust would entertain as being to funding other projects like the Winter Valley project or other potentially worthy projects?
Yeah, I in my professional life. My answer would be absolutely that the Milton Affordable Housing Trust should want to be a part of that, a part of any piece of affordable housing development in the town. And frankly, when I approach a town for my development work, if I know that the funds are with the Affordable Housing Trust, there is a great relief to me as a developer, because I know that I'm working directly with a group of individuals who do this for, in many cases for a living, and who are sort of singly focused on this type of work. Typically the Affordable Housing Trust just has a better focus on and asks the right questions and does the correct follow-up and, leads to a much more meaningful discussion around how these funds are being used. And, as a trust, we have to record and authorize the spending. So it's not as though we can, we're an easy target to write a blank check. We have to make sure we're recognizing where the CPA funds are being spent.
Right. Okay. Other questions from other committee members? All right.
And I hope next year we have 4 Affordable Housing Trust applications.
Right. Pete, actually, Pete, sorry, I saw your hand there. Go ahead, Pete. Pete, you're on mute.
Julie, we funded you last year, and I know those funds are just available as of July 1st, so you don't really have funds in hand yet, and there's grant agreements and things like that. But has the trust had any conversations about any use of CPA funds, for current projects you're working on, using some of those funds from last year, or is it part of just accumulating a bigger account so that you can, negotiate with other people?
We haven't had direct discussions. I will say, we're working on the RFP for the, for the town farm, and certainly we'd love to be able to sort of set aside some funds for that work. I've also, we've been sort of the middleman on some of the off-site housing that is a result of some of the other developments in town, Woodlot Road, and then I can't remember the name, off of Canton. And so in some of that work, I've mentioned to folks that, they're supposed to deliver, let's say, 6 units of off-site housing. And I said, well, the CPA, the Affordable Housing Trust is now has a nice little balance of funds. And so if, you could add another housing unit, instead of delivering 2 at a time, if you could deliver 3, at a time, or at least, 3 more at some point, we would love to support that kind of work. So, the discussions have started. I think it's really important when a developer goes to the website, goes to the town's website, and sees that the trust has been funded. I think that is very much something that leads to discussions and leads to introductions of other ideas of how to create more affordable housing.
Cheryl?
Yes, thanks. I've talked with some developers, and the delta between the market rate units and the affordable units has just gotten to be so high that I fear that this amount of money that for the last 2 years is only a handful of units, to subsidize a developer in that situation. So I'm actually really interested to understand how the funds can be used to leverage other funds to really see some impact in the numbers. Because, since I am representing the planning board here, and we only have been able to get 10 to 12% affordability, which, hardly makes a dent. And even the 40Bs at 20%, we get a lot of units to get a market rate units to get the 20% affordable. I'd love to see how that 100% affordable can be done. And so I'm hoping that you can come back and at least give us, or come back to the planning board or the master plan committee and really talk about how it can be done. Because I'm excited that the funds are becoming available, but it just seems like it could be a small drop in the bucket of for the need that's there.
Yeah,
think
and I think that's right. It it depends on a number of things. I mean, first and foremost, it depends on if they're for sale units or rental units, right? There's a lot more subsidies available for rental production, and the state allocating agency sees any CPA funds not just as an indicator to help close that gap between what it costs to build and the subsidies needed, but it's also very much a strong signal that the town is behind and supportive of that kind of work. Put your money where your mouth is, sort of thing. But there is increasingly large gap between an affordable unit and a market rate unit, especially on the for sale side, where the subsidies are limited.
Just one thing I would say too is I know that Winter Valley, I believe in their application was talking about, a lot of the affordable units are 80% area median income, whereas theirs are dropping, potentially down to 50 or even 30. And that might be something to think about too, not just total number of units, but how affordable are those units?
Yeah, absolutely. That's in our work plan as well. If we can buy in some deeper affordability, then we are touching folks who have no chance of living here, right? Because they can't even afford a 60% or 80% AMI rent.
All right. Thank you, Julie. Very much appreciate it. And I think we're through our applicants. We put on the comments from additional applicants. I don't from whether or not there are other folks that have not appeared before us or previously appeared before us. I don't think there is anybody in the room that meets that category, but I will put that out there. If you're a applicant and you have additional things to add, now's the time. All right, hearing none. I don't see that anybody joined from Andrews Park baseball. Am I wrong? No, I don't see. So I guess we just move along here on the agenda. So the last two things I had Julia put on the agenda were the discussion of grant agreements. And I don't know if Kathleen has any updates of where we are or not, but this has been a standing item in case we have any updates.
Well, actually, I don't have any updates because actually I drafted them all, sent them all in. I wasn't on the committee and then I got on the committee. So I don't know what's happening with any of them because then I went sailing with Scandinavians. So okay. I have no idea what's going on with these things. So I don't even know who to check with to see where they all are. I thought that there would be comments from some of you folks about them, but perhaps there haven't been.
So I see a couple of hands raised, but Cheryl and then Pete.
Yeah, I'm going from memory now, Kathleen. I think 2 meetings ago or maybe 3. I mentioned that when I read the affordable housing one, that the language seemed to be specific to ownership and not, I didn't see any kind of reference to rental. So, but I'd have to go back and look at those words to pick up exactly what.
I'll look at that. Okay.
Okay. And then on the, I think it was on the historic preservation, I was looking at the old lockup station at Milton Landing and then the Forest House. I don't think they were, my recollection is I raised the question of whether the Secretary of the Interior Standards was a constant in all historic preservation agreements or awardees, and we should be consistent about that. I think that was my comment for that one.
The Forbes Museum is already subject to a historic preservation restriction, all of that property with the Mass Historic Commission. So they are bound by those Secretary of the Interior requirements already. But I can throw that in. And I think I did. I'm not quite sure the lockup isn't, there's no historic district there yet. I know there's been chat about it. I don't think the lockup is listed. It's on a local inventory of our local historic commission, but not, I don't think, the state inventory. And so,
sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
so we can certainly, put that in, that they should be following the secretary. I thought I had, but we can certainly put that in.
Yeah, because I think there was a report that was done a few years ago that outlined the kind of repointing and other repair work that used mortar and other materials that wasn't
well, I'm sure that all the work that's been done on that building in the last 100 years hasn't complied with anything.
Right. And it can be damaging, if you use the wrong mortar or if you use the wrong materials, it actually can damage the historic fabric. And so that's the kind of thing that we wouldn't want to have happen. And so following the Secretary of the Interior standards gives us our sort of, not really guarantee, but better, guarantee that it'll be done properly without having to go through the oversight, right?
Well, I think it'd be a situation where if they do a repair, they do certain repairs the way they've been doing them in the past, it'll never get listed. You've destroyed whatever historic fabric is there by, using whatever you bought at, Home Depot. I don't know. We can certainly talk to the town and the committee that's been dealing with that. But we can certainly add it in. That's part of the discussion with them. We need to be under the act using our historic preservation funds for certain purposes. And so we can't be supporting something that defeats that. So
that actually came up in the Eustis Estate application this time because the mortar, right? They showed us pictures of different types of mortar that were used, and I'm guessing that some of those weren't compliant. Okay. So I guess, is there a larger question there, Cheryl, of should we just make?
Yeah, that was a larger question for me, was just to make it a consistent requirement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Should we just put that in all the historic preservation projects?
Right.
Whether or not it's redundant or not, I think that'd be good.
Okay.
Okay. Pete. And then Joe. Pete, mute. You're on mute.
The lockup is on the state historic preservation list, so it does apply. We definitely told them at the time that we awarded them a grant, their first grant, that they would have to comply with that. So I don't know if they've taken any actions to date on, furthering the design or compliance with the Secretary's standards. One thing, Kathleen, you indicated, well, first of all, I know Jenny and I submitted comments to you. I don't know if those were incorporated.
Yes, they were in the last drafts.
Okay, great. But I guess since you're on the committee now and not serving as our legal consultant, no one that we know of is picking up to move those grant agreements along. Is that correct?
Right. Well, I mean, I didn't do anything more because I was waiting for a meeting of this committee to say, yes, go forward with them or not. I mean, I didn't know whether anybody even liked them. So, I didn't do anything more. And then, I went sailing. So, so anyway, I'd be happy to,
This is that meeting.
take them up and, and sort of move them along.
That would be great.
Can you do that without there being any conflict, Kathleen?
I'm not, at this point, I'm not charging you for anything. I'm doing this. I've not, that would be a conflict of interest to do two jobs. And so I'm doing this as a member of the committee for nothing.
Okay, that's a little much, but thank you very much. And while I have the floor, I have a question about funds being returned. When projects aren't completed, in a lot of cases, it seems to go back to the park department or something of that nature. should those funds not come back to the committee? Because they're going to go into I'll use the park department as an example, into their general funds and then get used for what purposes?
Oh, no. The agreements say that they have to be used for the purposes for which they are awarded. They
Right.
don't go into the town's general fund. And if the project nothing happens with it, it should come back to the committee, come back to the CPC. And,
Okay.
Wendy could talk to this, but, in Plymouth, what would happen is that every once in a while, as they've had CPC for a long time, is that we would go back to town meeting and rescind certain votes. And so those funds then become available for whatever, they go back in the pot of CPA accounts.
So we would have to track that then in some form or fashion.
We should be doing that anyway, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah.
All right, and Jenny.
Well, somewhat related to that is what I noticed in all the letters, Kathleen, was not a specific request for a report of activities or expenditures, but a responsibility of the committee to have, or of the recipient to have open access to their records. And it seems to me that we might want something that's a little bit more concrete from the awardees, requesting some kind of report back to the committee. And I'm wondering whether that is too onerous or whether that's something that can be consistently requested in these letters.
Well, there's a sort of a problem with some of it. One is that you can't, if it's a grant to a private or, not municipal entity, like Forbes or, wherever, other Eustis or something like that, is that you can't ask for such detailed reports that it then becomes to look like a municipal project and is then subject to public bidding and all the obligations that are attendant to any municipal project. So there's a line you have to draw about how involved you're going to be in seeing what people are doing with those funds with respect to private entities. With most of our grants for this past year, this fiscal year, are to the town. And so it's a question of the town talking to the town, because the treasurer for the CPC is the treasurer for the town. We don't have a separate entity for that. And so.
But isn't it more, Kathleen, we want them to talk to this committee in the town, and like we want to be able to say at a town meeting presentation in the future that 80% of the funds have been deployed on the projects and the other 20% are waiting, or whatever. But
it's a question about how involved you folks want to get in terms of watching all this stuff. I mean, right now it's been a pretty full load just sort of getting through the applications and the grants without even getting started with anything. So.
Right.
It seems to me that that should be a town, some full-time employee of the town should be helping us facilitate that, right? Like if we could get an annual report from the planning staff, or I don't know, but it just seems like that's.
Well, most of our grants are with Parks and Rec. And so it's a question of whether, Parks and Rec is going to take the time to report to us, or the Concom. I think those are the two entities that we're dealing with. And so I guess it's a question of, how involved are Parks and Rec?
Right. It's one of the, I think, intriguing things about CPA, right? This manifests itself on the state level, and we're seeing it on local level. CPA doesn't fit anywhere, right? There's no one department that oversees housing and open space and recreation and historic preservation. So it really needs multiple.
So we can certainly, as I said, the general grant agreement allows us to walk in anytime we want and take a look. I guess so. If you want to twist that to say they have to submit to us once a year or something like that, a report.
Well, let's see what Pete and Cheryl have to say. And
I'm working with the treasurer and the accounting department to get an accounting system set up, not only for our annual funding and what we get in, but then also line items for each of the grants that we get. So when a grant, when a requisition comes in to pay from the town, the grantee, the accounting department will note that on the reports that I get. And the plan is that they will give me quarterly reports on all our CPA, both income and outgo. So, we will in that way be able to track how much money was spent in terms of, looking at the actual work being done. That's a separate matter, but we will be able to track the status of funding on all of them.
Oh, nice job, Pete.
That's great.
Cheryl.
This isn't related to this kind of funding, but the Wolcott Woods project, which the planning board issues special permit for, issues quarterly progress reports to the planning board. They're just for informational purposes. And it's useful to keep, it only takes a few minutes to read and it keeps us up to date. And that way, if we do hear from members of the public about something, we're at least kind of abreast of the progress of the work on a multi-year project like that. In this case, I'm thinking, the committees have to provide a report for the
town report.
Yeah. And it would be useful, I think, as this committee can, we start racking up more years and people begin to, they ask more, well, what has money been spent on? And, has it all been deployed and have projects stalled out? It would be a tracking system for us. And so an annual report makes sense to me. And that way, too, it would help new committee members that come on. Some continuity across different, because especially like some of us who are representing a board that we may not be on, for a long time. So I would be one to be in favor of an annual report. It doesn't have to be long; it could be a one-pager, but just a status update.
Okay,
I like that, Cheryl.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Sure.
Okay. All right. Pete.
I believe we submitted a report from this committee to the annual report for this past year. So I just, most committees do and all the departments do. And I'm pretty sure that Rob, because I think he and I worked on it together, submitted a report that was in the past year's annual report. So I think that should get to be, a habit.
Yeah, no, I think the only thing that we're friendly amendment to that is more a quality, right? We'll always have a numbers based annual report, but I think a quality report is the way I'm seeing it. Like this project happened, this project's in progress, this, that type of stuff. If we can add some context to the numbers, I think that would be what I think.
Beneficial.
Beneficial. Thank you. Yeah. And what I think would speak to, but yes, I think that's a requirement of us to contribute to that annual report each year. Jenny. You're mute.
Sorry. Kathleen, maybe it would be useful if you had sort of a one line in the agreement that said that the committee requests an annual report, simple report, maybe the form of which could be supplied by the committee to fill out.
Oh, I think we would just have them submit
a one-page report narrative.
A one-page narrative on the status of the projects and,
and funds spent to date.
Yeah.
And the expenditures. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So I was
and then just have.
I'm sorry, Jen, just to that point, if you had the gardening club, maybe their report would have how many visitors came.
Yeah, I mean, it could be just sort of a relative narrative.
Yeah.
So to some of the concerns of the committee or something like that. But you could also put a date on it that would be the date of, 1 year from the date of this signed agreement.
Mm-hmm. Well, that might not work. I mean, if you're trying to think about what you would be then folding into a report for the annual report in town meeting, you'd be looking at that as a publication date.
Yeah, I don't know what the timing was.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to line up, but yeah. Okay.
You could also put it, instead of a deadline, you could say when the expenditures have been completed or something like that. So, you know,
I think if we just keep it as simple and short to say, you know, we want to know every year. It's a 3-year grant, and we want to know every year what you've spent, how far you've gotten, and you know what your progress is on.
Yeah. Let me just add that I would ask Julia to sort of track that a little bit. So begin to have some sort of mechanism. I don't know, dare I say a database or, you know, something that would track where the grants are at, whether they've submitted a report, you know, whether the expenditures have been complete, that kind of thing. So we have kind of a running tab, because come year 3, 4, 5, you're like, oh my God, you know, where are we with this grant that was 3 years ago? I have no idea.
Yeah.
And so, Julie, I don't know if you could take that on.
Well, that's sort of a useful, I mean, that's sort of something that, you know, comes up a lot, and not just for us, but for, you know, planning boards and conservation commissions, or never, where you approve subdivisions and you say, oh, we're going to get a conservation restriction, we're going to get this, we're going to get that. And then you find out 10 years, you know, later, nobody did any of that, because there's no follow through. The planning director left and nobody got hired. And, you know, there's all those things that get dropped. So it might be a useful idea for us to come up with some kind of, you know, project calendar. So each project, you know, sort of has a sheet, an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, that's got like the date of the grant agreement, the amount that we've awarded, you know, and the sort of progress points we put in to some of those, you know, like the Spalding, we want to know that they're going to be spending the money and also going to be making sure that the town knows about that garden and is open to the public. That's a key item for us. And so you would be folding, I think, into some of those, you know, those kinds of other deliverables for each one.
So maybe, Julia, maybe we can work on that together with, you know, and maybe circulate it initially to Jenny and Pete and myself, and then we can bring it back to this full committee for review at a later meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Good.
But in the short run, I would say if the grant agreements can get out, and I would authorize, I mean, or at least trust you, Tom, and Kathleen to complete the letters as soon as possible to get them out. I'm not sure we all need to see them again.
So that's a question. So you got a few comments tonight, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you mentioned you were going to go back and add. So do we want to have a motion now to authorize, I guess, me to work with Kathleen to get them out without a further vote, or do we want them to come back to the committee at some date in the future?
Well, I mean, I think we could send them out. They're drafts. There may be some pushback from the recipients potentially.
Right. This could
they
be
haven't seen them yet.
It could be a negotiation. Yeah. So I guess it's a question of the comfort level of the committee is do we want to vote tonight to authorize us to get them out there with the friendly amendments that were suggested, you know, to Kathleen this evening? Pete?
I make a motion that the committee authorize Kathleen and Tom to work together to get the draft grant agreements out to all the grantees from last year's grants, and to start the process of the approvals.
Right. All right.
I'll second that.
And there's
second that.
There was, I know, I can't remember whose voice, I can't see whose voice that was. Joe, Jenny?
No.
Or both?
That was me.
That was
me, Jenny.
All right, Jenny. Sorry. All right. So it's a motion, a second. Any discussion? Okay. Roll call vote. Pete?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Jenny.
Yes, go for it.
All right. And Tom, yes. So unanimous.
Okay.
Unanimous.
Right.
Good.
All right. And last discussion is a really short discussion. I just put this on there just so we could talk about it. But I've detected, based on the conversations we've had, that there was at least some interest in site visits to the cemetery. That was one project that people expressed an interest. And then it came up again. I forgot what the name of this project is called, but the marsh near the Neponset on the Quincy line that was presented by Arthur Doyle last time. A number of us, or at least a couple of us, expressed some interest in a site visit there to see that.
I'd be happy to show you.
So are there any others that I'm missing? Are those two of interest? I have already reached out to the cemetery. She was more than willing to accommodate us. And I guess the last question in that series of questions there would be, I'm thinking this is going to be a bear to organize in terms of trying to get a date and time that works for everyone. I don't know if that's possible even, but so we're going to do our best. But I was thinking at early in the day or end of the day, partly because we're talking about the summer heat here and, you know, it might be a little cooler at those hours. I know that the director of the cemetery said she would be willing to do one after hours in the, early evening, late afternoon, early evening hours. But I'm thinking early day, trying to schedule it either earlier day or end of day. How does that work generally? Is that, should I rethink that? And I don't really want to do a doodle poll for everybody because I think that will take forever, but whatever.
I'm good with late afternoons.
Late afternoons?
Yeah.
Yep.
Tom, just pick a date and whoever can come can come.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise,
I think you're right, Jenny. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess it should be before next Wednesday, right?
No, I don't feel pressured to do that because all we're doing next Wednesday is moving them forward. And I think almost every application will get forwarded to a second round, I would think. So I think we need to, I want to do it relatively soon, but I talk me out.
I don't think you have to do it by Wednesday.
I don't think it's gonna, specifically those two projects, I can't imagine us not inviting them to apply for round two, So I don't, that has been my thinking, as long as we do it, so I'm thinking, next few weeks, basically.
Okay.
Just pick a date and time and tell everybody when it is and who can make it.
And
Make it.
we obviously have to post it and then,
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're done. We need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I don't know if we can discuss this. I'll just say this and not take any discussion because, but one of the things we'll have to put on the agenda for next time we meet is at the very top of the agenda is, I believe last year we went with the red light, green, yellow light, red, whatever, green light, yellow light. I can't even talk. Yellow light, red light thing. And so we should just have at the top whether we're going to do that type of exercise for all 21 projects. You can't really discuss it, but we'll come prepared to discuss that and make a decision on that at 7:00 next Wednesday. I think is it 7? Julia, is it 7:00? Did we not?
Next week, you check. No, the 26th is at 3.
We went back to the 3:00. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So 3:00 on next Wednesday, the 26th.
Tom, I think it's slightly nuanced because it's the red light, green light worked better when we had the money to give to everybody. In this case, the conversation is what
Yeah.
are we going to cut? So it's
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So I'm
Slightly
going to defer
different.
that discussion, so we're not in violation of anything, but we'll defer that discussion to the beginning of the meeting. We'll put that on the agenda. Obviously, we'll have a chance to discuss each project too. So, but I agree with you. It is a little nuanced. Our job's a little more difficult in one respect, at least. It's easier in another respect because we have all that experience under our belt.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to do a roll call. A motion to adjourn. Did we just do this? No.
We did that.
No, that was on the motion to approve.
No, we didn't, we just had the motion made, but we didn't vote yet.
Yeah. So we voted on the motion to approve, Kathleen and I, to send out. We didn't have a motion to adjourn yet, did we?
We did, but we
Okay.
didn't vote on it yet.
Okay. And it was seconded?
Yes.
It was seconded.
All right.
I'm in favor.
Joe's in favor. Ted?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Jenny?
yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
All right, who seconded it, that motion to adjourn? Jenny, you made the motion to adjourn, right?
I think I did. Yeah. And I think
Yes, and Joe
seconded.
seconded it.
Oh, Joe seconded. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Julia, for catching that. Cheryl, I think
Yes.
Kathleen
Yes.
and Tom, yes. We will see you next Wednesday.
Thank
You
you.
all next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Tom.